Okay, I think we'll get started. Here I am. Hello, everyone. Hello. And welcome to
Hi.
a very special Poka app event. Poka X Adina for Fibroid Awareness Month. My name is Adele Tipra, and I am a co-founder and the creative strategist at Poka, a period tracker and reproductive health app created exclusively for African women. I will be your moderator for today. And this online event, just making sure that it flows smoothly and you receive the information about fibroids that you're here for. And of course, Adina. This event is being streamed live on Zoom and on YouTube. So let's do a quick audience check. If you are on YouTube, put a pink heart in your chat. And if you are on Zoom, drop a purple heart in our chat. Come on, let's rep your platforms. All right, as some of you may already know, July is Fibroid Awareness Month, a whole month dedicated to bringing attention to uterine fibroids, a condition that challenges millions of women worldwide, especially Black women. It's also a month that brings communities together to discuss everyone's self-care, to discuss women's self-care tactics, and to push for additional research and funding for this very common ailment, but it's often under-discussed, underfunded, and sometimes stigmatized. We'll kick off with a quick introduction to Poka app from Nanajwa, who is a co-founder and the CEO of Poka. We'll follow that with a brief presentation on uterine fibroids with Dr. Elise, who's also a co-founder and the chief medical officer at Poka. She'll tell us what they are, why and how they develop, the different kinds of fibroids, symptoms, treatment options, etc. And then we'll dive straight into the main event that most of you are actually here for. Story time with the Adina Tembi herself. Adina will share her personal journey with fibroids and why raising awareness is important to her. We hope that you're inspired by her story and inspired to take charge of your own reproductive health using Poka app, of course. Finally, we'll open up the chat to questions and comments from you, our audience. And if you have a fibroid story that you would like to share, that will be the time for you to do that. If we still have time, doubtful, but if we still have time, we'll do a brief demo of the Poka app for you. Before we start, however, let's quickly bring Adina on. Adina, how excited are you to be here with Poka app to share your very inspiring fibroid story?
I'm very, very excited. It feels like I'm sitting with a bunch of sisters and we just get to talk and chit chat and, share and learn. So I'm really, really happy to be here and I can't wait.
Yes, it does feel like that. And we're so happy that you have, graced us with your presence and you're sharing your story with us. We're so happy to have you and we can't wait to hear from you. But first, Nanajwa, the floor is all yours. Tell us about Poka app.
Thanks, Tipper. Hi, everybody. Nice to be
Hi.
back again with the whole squad. Hi, Adina. I'm so happy you said it feels like sisters because that's like the entire vibe we're going for at Poka. We're trying to create a community, but let me not get ahead of myself. Let me tell everybody about Poka and then I'll talk about the community. So, like Tipper said, we are a women's health startup at our core. We are just here to help women to understand their reproductive health much better. That is the big, the big picture. But deep when you kind of delve deeper, what we are is a mobile application. We the Poka Health app, which is available on iOS and on Android, is essentially a cycle tracker for women, but is being made with Black and African women in mind. And the things that we provide are education about African women's reproductive health in a way that is culturally sensitive to as Africans. So we're teaching you about the things that are peculiarly affecting us as African women, and you're giving us better education and information that will help us to be able to navigate our reproductive health much better while living in our very African bodies and African societies. So we are mobile app. You can currently track your period on the Poka Health app. You can track your symptoms and your activities as well on the Poka app. And then you can also read articles that we are curating within the team about the things that affects us. So things like period management, fibroids, endometriosis, just anything that has to do with your reproductive health. And we're open to suggestions on topics that people want to learn more about. We'll do the research and we'll give you the information. Foods that you need to eat, for example, during your cycle to help you to feel better and take more control. So when we say take charge of your reproductive health, that is really what we mean. We want to give the education that will empower you to be able to understand your body better. And instead of your period or your cycle happening to you, you'll be in charge of it. And it's something that you are able to kind of keep track of and be able to understand why things are happening, when they are meant to happen, and how they are meant to happen. So in addition to everything, we also have a community. The community is accessible via the app. So download the app if you want to check out our community. And there, like Adina said, it's really just a bunch of sisters who don't know each other from anywhere, but have just come together and we are bonding on our common desire to understand our bodies better and navigate it in the most conscious way possible. So there's over 300 women just flocking together and discussing our most vulnerable and taboo topics in such an open and honest way. It's beautiful what the community has become, and it really does feel like sisters. So we invite you to be our sisters if you're not currently on our community. We'll take some more questions about the app towards the end, but feel free to check any comments or questions you might have on the YouTube or on the Zoom, and we'll get to you. Otherwise, enjoy the session and thanks so much for joining. Over to you, Tipra. You might have to unmute yourself.
Right, thanks for that. Thank you, Nanajwa, for that overview of Poka app. Very succinct, very well said. So let's pass the baton to Elise, Dr. Elise, the Chief Medical Officer at Poka, and she will take us through a short presentation on what fibroids are and so on and so forth. Elise?
Hi, can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. You couldn't see the
Okay.
screen.
Yes.
I panicked for a minute because I thought that people couldn't hear me. Okay, let me share my
Give me a
screen.
thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and now can everybody see?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, hi y'all. My name is Elise, and I'll be presenting today on understanding and demystifying fibroids, especially in African women. So before we start, let's if you've ever been diagnosed with a fibroid before and you're comfortable about it, please react or tell us about it. Share your experience in the chat box so that by the time that we're done with the presentation, we can all take a look at it. We can chat about it. So first of all, 1 in every 4 Black women aged 18 to 30 has had fibroids or has fibroids. And then 80% of African women will develop fibroids by age 50. Now, not everybody has symptomatic fibroids. Like, I'll get to that point, but the fact is that we're more affected than other races when it comes to fibroids in general. I mean, a lot of other illnesses are also, we're often predisposed to more illnesses than other races. So it's important that we, as women, as African women, bundle together and learn the things that affect us more than they affect other people. So fibroids are one of them. So fibroids are also called leiomyomas or myomas, and they are benign growths or tumors. So that benign means that they're not cancers. They will not develop into cancer. It's very rare for them to develop into cancer, but they form in the uterus in the smooth muscle cells. Most of the uterus is made up of smooth muscle, and they form in there. And for some people, they cause problems. So causes, we really do not know what the causes of fibroids are. What we know is that there are genetic basis. So generally, if someone has a family history of fibroids, they're more likely than someone who does not have a family history of fibroids to have fibroids. But generally, there's no specific, we don't have like, this is what caused it, this is what causes it or not. But we do have risk factors. So some of the risk factors are, like we said, family history. So if you have more people in your family who had fibroids, you're more likely to have fibroids as well. If you have some hormonal imbalances, estrogen, progesterone imbalances, I know that estrogen increases the risk of, not necessarily the risk, but if you do have fibroids, estrogen is going to make them bigger. So that's why when people are pregnant or are taking some other kind of estrogen replacement hormones, those can increase the size of their fibroids. And then there's lifestyle factors like diet, obesity, and stress that will also affect fibroids. So increase your risk of getting fibroids. So now we're going to talk about the different types of fibroids. Fibroids are classified usually based on where they are. So here's a better picture that shows where they are, what they're called. So we have intramural fibroids. Those are inside the muscle wall. And those are the most common generally. So considering it could be all this part is the muscle wall, and it could be at any point within the muscle wall inside. The difference between this one and subcellular cell ones are that these ones are more on the outer side. So these ones are more likely to push on other organs that are outside the uterus, but these ones, which are the most common ones that we find, will most likely push on things inside. So depending on the size and on the location, you can have, some people look like they're pregnant, some people cannot have babies, or and they bleed a lot. The submucous ones are usually the ones that will cause bleeding because they're in the uterus. These intercavitatory ones, this is also pedunculated. These ones can become, what do we call it? They can get strangulated and then cause a lot of pain or bleeding or whatever. So the symptoms generally depend on where you'll find the fibroid and on their size and what's happening with them at that point in time.
Right.
So that being said, before I talk about the symptoms, I just want us to think about the bigger picture. Only about 20% of women who have fibroids will show any symptoms. Only 2 out of 10 will show any symptoms at all. So a lot of us might have fibroids. We have no symptoms. They're not causing any problems. We're not going to take them out. So the fact that you have a fibroid because you did a scan for something else and saw that there was a fibroid does not necessarily mean that you have to take it out. And that's something that it's always hard to tell people in clinic, because the rap about fibroids is that if you have fibroids, you can't have children or you have to take it out. Generally, most people are not symptomatic. They will have no symptoms. But the people that do have symptoms can have really bad symptoms for which they need to take them out or need to do something about. I mean, taking them out is not the only way to fix the problems, but there are other ways as well that we'll talk about. Generally, the symptoms are, some people bleed a lot. They become very anemic. It changes their life. Some people cannot use regular menstrual pads. They have to use diapers. A lot of the bleeding, generally women bleed, we're anemic, but people who have fibroids that are bleeding bleed a lot, and it can cause a lot of problems. Some people also have a lot of pelvic pain and pressure. So for someone, it might not be pain, but they feel pressure in their uterus, as if they're having a baby, or as if there's something there. I mean, there's a fibroid there, there's a mass over there. Some people pee a lot as if they were pregnant because the fibroid is pushing on the bladder. And then some people have fertility problems, either the implantation cannot occur, or it occurs and then the fibroid gets in the way. Like, there's so many reasons why it can cause reproductive and fertility problems. So how do we treat fibroids? So considering that 80% of women who have fibroids will not have symptoms, the main thing that we do is watchful waiting. because chances are it will not cause any problems for you in the long run. If you're part of the 80% and you have fibroids, the main thing that we'll do is watchful bleeding. Usually your doctor will ask you, when do you intend to have children? If it's not in the next foreseeable future where and it's not making you bleed, it's not giving you any symptoms, we really won't do anything about them. So it's watchful waiting. But for some people that are bleeding a lot, we use hormonal medication. So the birth control pills, IUDs, these are helpful in reducing the bleeding because of the hormonal imbalances. The hormonal medications or birth control pills can help reduce the bleeding and things like that. Then we have non-invasive procedures. These are like uterine artery embolization. So the uterine artery is what is feeding blood, like it's a blood supply to the fibroids. So if you're stopping it at that point, then that means the fibroids will shrink because they're not getting blood supply to them. So then there are other ones, like I think there's like ultrasound guided, I'm blanking out on what the full name is, but it's like they use ultrasound to guide high intensity waves, and then they use that to destroy the fibroids. So that's also minimally non-invasive. So they're not cutting you open. We have some minimally invasive procedures, which are like laparoscopic or robot-assisted surgeries. So in that case, they're only making like a tiny incision and putting the probes in you, and then taking the fibroid out through that. And then what used to be, I can't say now what is most commonly using. I feel like it's still myomectomies, which is the surgical procedure where we cut you open and then we take out the fibroids. That's the surgical one. So yeah, basically this is just like a short overview of fibroids. This is how the main thing is that it disproportionately affects us as African women, but it's also important to know that not everyone who has a fibroid will have symptoms. And if you do have symptoms, then it's important that you get diagnosed early. And then also because there's so many treatment options depending on size, depending on where the fibroid is. So now, before I hand over to Adina to tell us her story, I know that a lot of people have had some experiences with fibroids, or they've heard some experience. If you still haven't put your experience or what you've heard or thought about in the chat, please do so. And I will take any questions that anybody might have. Any questions? Oh, and before we hand over to Adina, okay, while you're asking questions, please download the Poka app, because Nanaja will do a run through with us if we have time, after Adina has spoken to us. So please scan this QR code and download the Poka app. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Yes, amazing presentation, Elise. Thank you so much. We had somebody comment, Oyokwate, I believe she's listening in from YouTube Live, says, I got to learn I had fibroids after a scan 10 plus years ago. They were really small, so the doctor wasn't worried about it. Then I learned my mom also had her after I told her about it. So yes, like you talk about how it's genetically predisposed. A lot of people don't know our family members have it because they don't talk about it. So
yeah,
she
so
says,
that's
when I got pregnant, yes, go on.
No, you go on. I'll go after that.
Yeah, so she continues, when I got pregnant, they increased and showed up on my belly. I thought it was my baby's feet. Not me stroking it, and she was stroking it. Oh my God, that's actually hilarious. They shrank after the baby.
Yeah. So because of the hormones the imbalance of hormones when you're pregnant, you have a lot of estrogen, you have progesterone, all of that. So they will definitely increase in size. So if it's not big enough that it's blocking the vaginal canal for the baby to be able to come out, or it's not causing the baby any harm, we'll just not touch it, because once you have the baby, the size will go down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel
I
like
see.
majority of people are diagnosed in pregnancy because before pregnancy, they haven't done a scan, or unless like you're having period issues or something and you do some scan and then you notice, oh, I've got fibroids. If it's not causing people symptoms, they usually don't know until they're pregnant and then they do a scan and they find out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's if you have any questions, keep them coming. We'll address more of them as we continue with this event. But I do, Elise, you mind stopping to share your screen?
Yep. Oh, I just saw that there's a comment in the Zoom. She says I
Okay.
was like a few years ago, only felt them when I was pregnant and it pushed against my abdomen and caused immense pain. Yeah,
Yeah.
fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I mean, very scary facts, what you've just talked about, Elise. 80% of African women, Black women, will have fibroids by the time they turn, I think it was 50 or 60.
50.
Yeah, 50. Very scary. But also, you balance that by saying actually a lot of them are asymptomatic. So you can go through your entire life without suffering any symptoms from fibroid. So yeah, it's a bit of a it's scary, but then also there's a bit of reprieve. But yes, let's open the floor up to Adina Tembi. A lot of you already know who she is, but she is a Ghanaian singer, sometimes actress, apparently a reluctant model. I'm curious about that. You look you look so beautiful. I love your outfit.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, so welcome to, Poka X Adina. Please feel free to share your story with us. I think starting with when you discovered or how you discovered that you had fibroids and sort of your initial sentiments, how you felt about it, how you coped with it, given that a lot of people don't really talk about these issues, and then the steps you took to sort of, I guess, rid yourself of them, because I do believe you did. But I'll let you tell your own story. Go on, Adina.
Okay, hi everyone. And like I said earlier, I'm very happy to be here to share my story. Okay, so I'm just gonna answer the question straight away. The first time I found out that I had fibroids, it was after I went to get a scan at a hospital because for some time I had realized that my abdomen was, protruding, and it just didn't make it had gone to the point where it didn't make sense because as women we get, our bloated moments every now and then. I'm the type of person that will bloat, getting towards my period time. And so I kind of expected it every month. But it got to a point where the bloating was happening a little too often. And it just didn't look good in clothes. For the sort of job that I do, I always need to make sure that I'm looking the parts because you might have a show in the coming weekend, and if your stomach is looking a certain way, then you need to start thinking, okay, what can I wear to cover it up or whatever it is. So I just found myself having to be covering it up a little too, often. And I was like, okay, let me just go and check. So there was a hospital just right down the road. I was like, let me just go. It was a fertility hospital. So I'm like, let me just go and find out what's going on. Before I went, my mom had fibroids, my sister had fibroids. So I kind of thought about it. I was like, okay, I could have it as well. But I didn't know that what was going on with me was fibroids. I didn't attribute it to fibroids. I just thought, sorry, it was something else. So I went to the hospital. I got the scan. And the funny thing that happened at the hospital, the doctor, the minute he saw me, he was like, oh, you're pregnant. You look pregnant. It was terrible. And I was already emotional because before I went to the hospital, I called one of my actual doctor, and she's like, you know what, you need to go and get a scan and be sure. But it's kind of looking like it's fibroid. So I already got emotional. I was like, what am I going to do? Do I have to go to surgery? Oh my God, I'm going to take time off work. So I had to go through all of that. And then,
Yeah.
gather courage and go to the hospital, only for this man to just look at me, and tell me that I'm pregnant. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not. I would know if I was. He's
Mhm.
like, okay, cool. I'm gonna do a scan anyway. So he does the scan. Then he's like, oh my God, you've got such huge fibroids. You need to take it out. You need to take it out, or else you might not be able to give birth. So
Wow.
first of all, I'm like, you even got it wrong by looking at me. Like I got upset at that doctor. I was like, why would you just look at me and tell me I'm pregnant? and then actually check. Sorry, I'm recovering from a flu. So I will be coughing and then actually check and tell me, what you say just like that. I feel like as a doctor, and I'm sure the doctor will confirm, you're not supposed to just be making somebody feel, terrible about themselves like that. I mean, whatever you have to say, I believe he could have found a better way to, relay the information. So I just took his report. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then I called my doctor, but it made me feel terrible. And luckily, my doctor told me I will have to get like, second, third opinions just to be sure of what I want to do. So I went to another hospital, another fertility hospital in the area, and they took time to check, where the fibroids were, where it was located, to see if it, like the doctor said, to see if it was something that could pose any, threats or, problems. So when she checked, she was like, you know what, you've got some fibroids on your ovaries, and that's kind of, tricky. So you will have to do a surgery. So she gave me the report and told me I could take it to whichever third hospital for third opinion. So I went to my doctor's hospital, which was Tema Women's Hospital, and she did the final check and she was like, yes, you do have fibroids, and where it is kind of tricky. And right now at that time, I think they could only see 8 fibroids. And they were like, so I need to make up my mind about coming to do surgery. It's very important, blah, blah, blah. So she took me through the entire process. She counseled me, made me understand that surgery is normal. It's just a procedure that will take the fibroids out of me and then I'll be okay, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people have done it and been able to give birth after, or even just, go about their normal day to day. So it's not that scary. So I had to now make up my mind during that time and fix a date and everything. I think I went to check in November in 2020, I think. And then I decided in February I was going to do the fibroids. Sorry, I was going to do the surgery because I realized around, I think it was COVID time, not 2020, it was 2021, but still, the president was still checking for, the cases and saying, okay, now the cases are getting worse, so Ghanaians, you guys need to make sure you stay indoors. So I think at the time he had canceled Valentine's Day, or the whole Valentine's thing, saying that it was getting tricky, and so people shouldn't go out. If you had to have an event, you have to limit it to a certain number. So I was like, what, I'm probably not going to be doing shows around that time. So it's probably the best time. So I had a word with my team. I told them, okay, guys, I think I'm going to go and do surgery around this time, blah, blah, blah. So I did I thought about everything. I made the plans. I had a few shows lined up before that. I did everything. I briefed my entire team. I was like, guys, I'm gonna go away for a bit, but I'll be back. I just need your support. And then I also made up my mind that I was gonna tell people about it, because the time I was suspecting that I had fibroids and spoke to my doctor, I went on Google because I'm a typical, Google researcher. Anything that happens to me, best believe I'm going to Google. My nose is hurting, I'm going to Google. My head is hurting, I'm going to Google. So I went on Google. I was trying to find causes of, fibroids. And it didn't have anything to say. They just said they didn't know what, caused fibroids. Because I wanted to know to see if there was something I could do to prevent it, or minimize it. Or I was trying to see, could I escape surgery? Like, I was trying to think about all my possible options, you know what I mean? And I realized that the information online wasn't, much. My doctor could only tell me what she could tell me. And I was just left with stories about my mom's situation, my sister's situation, because my sister took too long to go and do surgery. Not too long, but she took a while to go and do surgery. She was fighting it. She was hoping she could, take meds. My mom never did surgery. I think around the time she was ready to do something about it, she had entered menopause. And so I think it naturally shrunk. So that was it. So my sister eventually did surgery. So I was like the younger person that had to deal with it. And I didn't really have information available. So that was one thing that I was like, you know what, if I got an opportunity, I would share my story with a lot of people, because I know a lot of people that think fibers are associated with, spiritual, courses or something. And I know for a fact that it's nothing spiritual, at least not that I know of. And I also know people that have done, the surgery or have had fibroids and have given birth. So I was like, there are so many, success stories around fibroids. Let me put my story out there. Let me get a camera crew. Let me talk about my situation. Let me take them to the hospital. Let them talk to my doctor. Let them, go through the entire procedure in the theater and talk about my recovery and all of that, just so that if anyone else is going through it and they don't have any family member who would educate them, or even a doctor like I was fortunate to have to talk them through the process, at least they'll watch my videos online and say, okay, Adina went through this and she's saying it's not that bad. I can do this, So that was the main reason why I decided to share my story. Because I realized that I didn't have a lot of info. I mean, I had some information. I was fortunate, but still, it wasn't enough. I feel like if you want to talk about if you want to look for anything on Google, anything at all, say flu symptoms, you have so many different stories, so many different home remedies. Like if you're not if you're not comfortable with one way, you're definitely it's possible you're going to find like 10 other ways of dealing with that flu, situation.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same for fibroids. So I thought, let me just add my voice to it, and eventually we're going to get to the time when people will Google fibroids and they're going to have so many success stories, so many, different remedies and so many different things just on the topic. So yeah, that's what happened. And I set a date, February, after work, 1 week. I think it was during after the Valentine's, 20 something. I think it was the 21st.
Okay.
I went, checked in, got my surgery done. And when they did the surgery, they found 16 fibroids. And
wow.
they were like, okay, it's normal because obviously once we're doing the scan, they're not in there to know, for sure what is where. But once they opened me up, they realized there was so much more, like they found so much more. And the process took about an hour and 30 minutes. The doctors were so kind to engage me the whole time. They even had me sing, which was interesting for me. I was like, I can sing. But everyone was just great in the theater. They were with me. They took me to the general ward. Everybody there was excited. They're like, oh my God, Adina's here. There was a lady that had done hers before me, I think an hour or so before me. So she and I became like best friends the entire time because, we were sharing our stories. Recovery was kind of tough in the beginning, especially in the general ward. I didn't know that I didn't have to get up because I still had a bit of the anesthesia in me. So I couldn't, sit up, and I didn't know that. So I was getting ready to do like, no, you can't sit up. You need to lay down flat. But I took my time. I learned everything I needed to learn. I listened to instructions, which is very important because the doctors know what they're saying. You're not supposed to be lifting stuff. You're supposed to encourage walking by a certain time. Make sure you eat well. All those things I went through, and I was supposed to wait for about 6 weeks to come back, to be able to, go about my day-to-day. And by the 5th week, I was even performing on stage, which was, interesting for me. And I think I just started working from the 5th week and I never looked back. That was about it. When I shared my story online, that was something that was beautiful. It was very emotional because the entire time that I was preparing to share, I didn't post it until I was ready. I was like, fit, I was home and I could, be on my phone and stuff. And I decided I was going to tell people about it. And so many people had stories, guys. It will shock you. My DMs were overflowing and they just kept saying, don't put me on social media. I don't want anybody to know, but this is what I'm going through. I'm so glad that you've been able to do your surgery and you're okay. Now that I've seen you've gone to do it, I'm also going to go do it. And so many other people came. People flew in from the States, the UK, to go to the exact hospital that I went to. They keep calling me to say, oh, a lady just came. She just got surgery for fibroids. She said she saw your thing on Instagram. I was like, thank God. And so far, it's only one story that I've heard that's been tragic. There was a girl that I actually personally knew who also had fibroids, and she decided to go and get surgery done. So she went to another hospital, not the hospital that I went to. And apparently they had complications during the procedure. And she's passed away now. But I remember she just hit me up randomly out of nowhere because I know her, but we don't really talk much. So she just randomly called and she said she wanted to talk to me. She wanted to go to the hospital that I went to rectify the issues at the hospital she went to. So I called my doctor and I was like, this is what's going on. The doctor said usually because it's surgery, they would rather you went back to the hospital you went to so that because they know what they may have done wrong. Because if it's someone else that entered your like, did the surgery on you, it's not right for them to try and rectify whatever the problems might be. And when I spoke to her, say if today's Wednesday, maybe like 2 weeks after, her brother called and said she passed away and that she went back to the same hospital and things didn't work out well. And I was so sad. I was like, wow. And of all the stories that I heard, that was the only one that came out a certain way. And I was very sad. I kind of blame myself at a point, but I also felt like, you know what, you just put your story out there. You decided to share your story with people. People acted on it. Whatever happened in the theater had nothing to do with me, but may her soul rest in peace. And that's not to scare anyone on this panel, on this platform right now. That's just life, and things happen, mistakes happen. That's why when you're about to go and do things like that, like my doctor advised me the first time, make sure you get second, third opinions. Don't just go to one hospital and they tell you, oh, hey, you've got fibroids. You have to come and do the surgery right here. And then you go there and do it. You need to hear from different hospitals. It might cost you a little bit more, but it's better that way because you need to be sure of the hospital you're going to. You need to be comfortable deep down in your heart that, I'm okay with this doctor. I think he's going to, do what it is that I need to be done for me. Yeah. So when anybody comes to me asking questions about how they got ready and all of that, I'll just say, make sure that you take good care of yourself. I made sure that week before I went, I ate very healthily. I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables because I was thinking, okay, I will need to be able to heal easily. So I made sure that I fed myself with things that would nourish my body and make me strong enough for what I was about to go through. Yeah, and then obviously make sure you're asking all the right questions in the hospital. Don't just don't let anybody what's the word? I'm looking for a word. Don't let anybody bulldoze you into making a decision you're not ready to make. Make sure you're totally okay and ready, mentally, spiritually, everything to go with whatever the procedure is supposed to be before you press play. That's the ultimate advice I'll give everybody. Yeah, so I think I've said a lot of things. I hope I didn't digress or lose any of you, but in a nutshell, that's my story. Yeah.
Wow. Well, yes, I mean, it seems to me like you did everything right in sort of analyzing what your own problem was and, taking the right steps. You went for a first, second, and third opinion. You talked to a family doctor who was close to you, knew you intimately because they know your health history and they're able to sort of co-sign on what previous doctors had said. You took some time to yourself to mull over your decision to make sure, like you said, that you were mentally and physically, ready to commit to it. You also chose a time where it wouldn't really impact you or your career or whatever as much, right? And luckily for you, that was at the time during COVID when everybody was sort of down and what you do, touring and things like that had slowed down for you. So you gave yourself enough space as well to have that full recovery, that well, no, you did go back a 5, but but the 6-week mark. And I think it was so brave of you to share your journey because Although from my perspective, and I think from a lot of our perspectives, nothing to be ashamed about when you have fibroids. Women, I think, as you know, a gender, hide a lot, especially when it comes to do our reproductive. We that's why you hear stories that say, you know, Black women don't feel any pain or they have high pain tolerances. But that's only because we suppress what we're feeling. We hide what's wrong with us. We, you know, how many of us will say when we grew up, our moms never fell sick, right? It's like we never saw a mom sick. Well, they were hiding when they were sick, you know. So
Yeah.
stories like yours, for example, will just show people that they're never alone in whatever it is that's going on with them. That as women, we have so much more in common than we do not. And I think I'm so happy to hear that you did inspire so many people to feel that comfort. It's a little bit, you know, down as well that some of them were saying, don't tell anybody. I don't want people to know what will happen when people know. Other people can chime in. But we want, as even, you know, as even Poka, for that shame around our bodies and what happens to our bodies naturally as women to go away and for us to openly talk
Yeah.
about these things. Yeah. So thank you so much for doing the brave thing, especially being a public figure. When somebody you sort of look up to does this, it gives you the permission. It opens the doors for you to do the same. And I think that's what the gift you give to so many women. Um, and yeah, I mean, as you described it, it seems that you got a local anesthesia, right? So you weren't fully put
Mm.
down to go to sleep to get
No,
it.
I wasn't.
Yeah, the
Mm.
surgery was an hour and a half for you to get 16. Do you know what sizes they were?
Oh, I would have to check. I heard something about 16 centimeters long.
Yeah.
It was it what so I actually saw them after the fact. I think a few days later, they were about to take them to check if they could find any cancerous cells in there. And so I went to look, and it was about this big. I don't know if any of you can see.
Wow.
So I
Yeah,
was
that
asking myself, did I have that inside? Which shocked me, even though my stomach was protruded. I didn't believe something that big could be inside me, you
right.
know? Yeah, but it
Crazy.
was of varying sizes. One very big one, and then different, like an orange, like an egg, like different sizes, 16 of them. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And you know, as a woman also concerned, you know, like who likes to take care of herself, I have to ask, what is the scarring like after a fibroid procedure?
Okay, so I was cut on the same place that they would cut you if they were doing a C-section, a
Okay.
cesarean section. And
Yep.
so that's yeah, so the doctor said, I know you use your stomach, so I'm just gonna cut you. Because when they looked at it, when they looked at the fibroids, they said it had come up and one of it was pressing against my ribs or something like that. And so they should have cut me this way, but the doctor said
Mm-hmm.
he's going to try and cut me, the other way
Mm-hmm.
so that I could still use my stomach. I don't know what he meant by that. And after the fact, the scar vanished. Right now, the scar is barely there. It's
Okay.
barely there. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
not a weird, huge scar or anything. If you looked at it, you'd be like, what is gone? It's pretty much, done. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously health over aesthetics anytime, but I ask because there might
Of
be some
course.
women who might hesitate because they don't want, you know, they might think of this consideration. But all
Yeah.
right. Well, any other questions coming from our try to give you a bikini scars. Let me quickly check my phone to see what everybody
Can
is
I just hop in
saying.
quickly and ask my question? Quick one.
Hi.
Yes, yes.
Hi, Adina. Thanks so much for sharing. That was lovely. So I also have fibroids, but nothing nearly as, I guess, serious, I suppose. Maybe I'm one of the ones that, like Elise said, I'm not symptomatic, but I've
Mm,
had children. So when I was pregnant, I felt them more. They were kind of like what someone said earlier about feeling them as if they were part of the baby. They got bigger while I was pregnant, so they hurt a little more. But I guess since then they've shrunk because I didn't take them out and they haven't been a problem so far.
mm.
Fingers crossed. But my question is, now that you've had that, does that mean what did the doctors say about when you want to have kids in the future? Will that be a problem for you having like a vaginal birth? Will you necessarily have to have a C-section? Like, is that something somebody has to worry about if they were to do their fibroid surgery now? how does it affect childbirth? Do you know?
Okay, so for childbirth, I asked my doctor and she said if I decided to conceive after 2 years, 2 years after surgery, then I might be able to consider a natural birth. But they would usually advise that you still get a cesarean because they don't know how firm you probably never will know until you try giving birth. Yeah, exactly. So she's saying that after 2 years you should be cleared to give birth naturally, but she would advise that I still do a CS. So that's what I have in mind.
Okay, all right.
I
Dr.
think
Elise, I'm guessing
I
you're
can
going to hop
chime in
on.
over there. The usual thing is that if you've had a scar on your uterus, then you don't want another scar. Like you don't want to try to burst it open within 2 years. So just like if someone has a CS, if they get pregnant within 2 years of that CS, they'll have another CS. So if you've
Yes.
had, even no matter what surgery it was, as long as you've had a scar on your uterus, we don't want you to try to have a baby within 2 years. If it's after 2 years, we'll gladly, I mean, we prefer vaginal deliveries if there are no contraindications, but if it's
Yeah.
within 2 years, then it can be dangerous for you.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another question here from, I believe, our YouTube listeners, watchers. Hello, everybody. Amma Haven says, what are the preventative measures against fibroids? I'll let Elise take it. Maybe Adina, you can chime in, but I think right off the top of my head, there are none.
Yeah, unfortunately. So because we don't know what causes it, we don't know how to prevent it. And I saw that someone also asked, why do they keep recurring? Same thing, we don't know why they recur. For some people, they will happen again. So for people who have multiple recurrences, what we do is that if you've already had your children, we'll take your whole uterus out. If you consent to that, of course. But generally, we don't know how to make it go away. We can take it out. We don't know how to prevent it from coming back. We don't know how to prevent it from coming at all. So
Let's be honest here. Do we not know because fibroids are, affect mostly Black women and there's little research, or we don't know because it is such a huge mystery and really there's no way of knowing?
there is limited research in darker skinned people. There's that. But I think that, I mean, the more research there is, the more likely we'll find out what it is. So yeah, I feel like maybe with time, with more research in African women or African American women who are more susceptible, we might find something about it. But yeah.
Okay. Adina, you had something to say there.
I mean, this is something that I got upset about when I found out that I had fibroids. I was like, I got upset. I just really got upset. I hit up my doctor friends. I was like, guys, why aren't you doing research? I hear you guys are doing research on different things in this world. Why aren't you researching on Black women and our reproductive health? Why are we
This
getting
is the
fibroids?
reason
We don't even
why.
know.
This is the
And when she
cootie, the
mentioned, I was like,
Lucci.
You mean there's no money? Wait,
Exactly.
there's no money in researching problems that affect
Yeah,
Black women?
exactly.
Okay.
Nobody is
Wow.
giving funding for certain research. So you have to have people who are giving funding because research is really expensive and we don't have the money. So that's the unfortunate thing. So when we become bankrollers, we can conduct all the research that we need that will help us as African women because it's really important.
Yeah, so important.
She's right.
And at Poka, we want to spearhead that. We want to bring the focus back to African women and the things that specifically affect us.
Yeah.
But yes, let's go all the way back to the beginning when Adina said what Adina said about the first doctor that she saw. His quick conclusion that she was pregnant and his quick recommendation that she have surgery. I think in the end, surgery was the right choice for her, but I was a little bit taken aback at that being the first measure, because at least when you did your presentation, you outlined a host of different treatment options available. Some are more invasive, surgery being sort of like the last resort when if you're at that level.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in on how you felt about that, but I was a little bit taken aback. And I think that is sometimes off-putting as well for women to visit doctors because they feel like Adina, I think you felt a little bit judged, a little bit not listened to. I mean, as a woman, we all know if you would know if you were pregnant. And so if you're coming to a doctor, asking him for a scan and not relating that to pregnancy, that should be the last thing that he says. You know what I mean? So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. Love to hear it.
I have thoughts.
Okay, go
So
on.
I'm so sorry that that happened to you and that you felt that way. Ideally, we're not supposed to say, like, we're not supposed to give a diagnosis until we're sure. We can speculate and discuss with you and say, oh, this is what we think, you know, but we're not supposed to say, oh, this is what's going on. That being said, the number of people that we see who are pregnant who tell you, have never slept with a man in my life. It will shock you. So sometimes you're reading a positive pregnancy test and they're telling you that, oh, they are probably Mary incarnate because they don't know men. So my apologies,
I
but
mean, I hear
I feel
you.
like it can numb you to a point where someone tells you they're not pregnant, but you know, oh, this person's probably pregnant. So then you're like, it's not right, but because of the frequency with which it happens, you might be quick to say, oh, it's pregnancy. I'm not saying that doctor was right, but I'm just saying it happens sometimes. So, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. But some sensitivity never hurt. So yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
All
because
right.
on this same topic, sorry, I was saying on this same topic, I remember when my sister went to also go and get a scan. Somebody told her there was a doctor in Mampong that she needed to go see. And when she went, I don't know if it was a thing that the doctor did to try and get patients to do surgery or book surgeries with him, but he scared my sister. He said, the way your fibroid is so big, you need to do, hey, if you don't do it, you can even die. So my sister came home with her eyes red. She was crying. Why? The doctor said, if she doesn't do the fibroid surgery day, the thing is so severe that she doesn't even need to leave. She needs to book the I was like, why would you do that? So I already had that in mind before I went for mine. I was like, I'm gonna be ready for anybody who tries me. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, I think that just speaks to the importance of finding the right doctor and having,
Exactly.
speaking to friends. If more women were open about having fibroids, the doctors that they've seen, who they liked, I think it could help, making recommendations. And those doctors that are not treating their patients right, that are trying to force certain procedures for their own gain will sort of be weeded out because the women are talking to each other and saying, please don't go here. This man will just fearmonger. You'll come home thinking that is the end of life. You know what I'm saying? So it's important
That's
that
the good thing about sharing because nobody is hiding. As Ghanaian women, we're very quick to hide things because somebody will be talking about you or somebody will even believe you. They'll look at your stomach and say, oh, you're pregnant and you're trying to hide it. So we're very good at hiding these things. And that makes it unfortunate because hiding, it gets shrouded, like a lot of wrong things get shrouded in the fear and let me go and find a quack doctor, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Adina, apart from sort of feeling that your stomach was protruding a little because the bumps, your fibers were actually that big, did you have any symptoms at all that may have alerted, for one, did you track your period? Do you track your period? Were there changes in your cycle that you noticed that might have said this is not, this is like, am I bleeding heavier? Is there more pain? Is there pressure? Like Elise said, did you experience any other symptoms that might have said these are fibroids?
So I used to bleed heavily, but not so heavily because I have family members who bleed ridiculously. Like they will need to be changing pads, and I probably just needed to change my pad like twice in a day on my heavy days. So my period was such that on the first maybe 3 days, I'll bleed heavily, and then it becomes lighter. And then every time when I was in senior high, when I was in gay, I always had to go to the sick bay during my period. Like I had to spend every month, I would have to go to the sick bay. And there were times when I would throw up. So when I found out that I had fibroids, everything made sense to me. I was like, okay, that's probably why I used to throw up, when I had cramps and I used to bleed, the way I used to bleed. But that was about it. It wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
I've seen a comment down there that did it change after surgery?
Yeah.
Yes, that's one thing that changed. So after surgery, I haven't had cramps. I haven't bleeded heavily. I haven't bled heavily. That's the word. I haven't had to throw up or felt nausea around my period. It's been a breeze since, to be honest with you. That's like one of the best things that's happened to me since I had my fibroid surgery. My period has been seamless, no issues. Yeah.
That's interesting because there are a lot of women that will complain about heavy bleeding, nausea, being admitted to hospital during their period, and almost that becomes their norm. And I think for you, that became your norm. You thought that this was normal, or at least for you, that
Yeah.
was normal.
Yeah.
But that was happening because there was an underlying cause. And for you, it was fibroids. It could be anything for different women, but I think it's important for women to understand that feeling so much discomfort during your periods, heavy bleeding,
It's not
too many
normal.
cramps, vomiting is not normal. It's not normal, and it's important to investigate what could be causing that. So happy to hear that your periods are, a breeze now. You took
Yeah.
you took charge of them. They're not in charge of you. So I love that.
Exactly.
Okay. Amazing. All right. Any other last minute comments, questions? I think we're about getting ready to wrap up.
I'm not sure if we already talked about this, but I saw a comment on YouTube asking what's the correlation between relaxers and fibroids. And I've also read a study that I guess it doesn't directly say this is a cause, but kind of alludes to the fact that fibroids were more prominent in women that had used relaxers over a period. So if anybody else or any doctors in the house at least want to comment on that, that'll be very helpful.
I've seen research on that, not just relaxers, but all these hair care products that were making people's hair, like texturizers and all these other ones. So we finally got my mother is the last person that switched from curled hair to keeping her natural hair, finally managed to get her to stop using relaxers. And that was the push. We're like, we don't want you getting ovarian cancer or like fibroids. And not, I mean, we didn't talk about fibroids because she's postmenopausal, but like there's also that ovarian cancer, uterine cancers. They've been linked to all these other chemicals. So yeah.
Wow. Is there anything about bleaching creams and things like that?
Bleaching creams are a whole. I haven't read. I haven't looked, so I won't say that I know that there's a specific correlation. But there are a whole, there's a whole school of things that make it not good to use. So I wouldn't advise it anyway. Yeah, because if you're having surgery, if you had fibroids and you are going to have surgery and you're using bleaching creams, your scar is going to take forever for your scar to heal. So there's that. It might not, things like that. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I think somebody had asked what are the causes of fibroids. And although we don't know exactly what causes it, I think it's safe to say that the things that you're applying to your skin, your hair, in fact, what you eat, for example, could all be contributing to whether or not your fibroids grow or exacerbated. So I think just be mindful of the toxins that exist in skincare, hair care, even the foods that we eat, and try and eat as clean and as healthy as possible. I think that just goes for all diseases, but specifically, for women's reproductive health, is very important that we are ingesting, just natural, not necessarily natural, because natural doesn't mean good, but just healthy, what's healthy for us.
Yeah.
I have a
Amazing.
question, Elise.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've seen lots of posters in town about non-surgical ways of shrinking your fibroids, drink this potion, shrink your fibroids on Instagram. Actually, people, I think personally, these people are just taking advantage of vulnerable women. But are there non-surgical medical ways to shrink your fibroids and get rid of them?
There are non-surgical medical ways and they're hormonal. So the IUD, the hormonal IUD, the contraceptive pills, I've seen a few others, but generally the basis is that they affect the hormones. And so that's how they reduce it. That being said, all these people that are shrinking fibroids and hemorrhoids on Instagram are liars. And I think that the FDA brought out something that said that people were not allowed to do that. So I can't remember what the detail is, but I know that people are generally no longer allowed to do that because they deceive a lot of people. And what happens is that whatever they give them, it might be placebo, might be nothing, might be just water with like flavor or whatever, and that's okay. But some of them are very toxic things. And so they end up getting like liver failure, kidney failure, and then that's way worse than the factors that were not causing anything for you in the first place. You know what I mean? So no, they're not. I don't believe in them. I don't think that they're right to be used. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, I know more about fibroids now than I ever dreamed I would.
I have a question in the YouTube chat.
Is there
Children
Yeah.
below 18 get fibroids?
I've seen a few teenagers, but they're usually not that big. I probably have to do research on that, but generally it's not a thing that you would worry about unless this person had like precocious puberty and by like 9 they were already having their periods. It's not usual that because of the hormonal component, they usually would have had to have had been of reproductive age for a while before you start to see that they get bigger or whatever. So generally, not that they don't have it, but it won't be much of a problem in that age.
I've got a question
Mm-hmm.
for Elise. So is there any correlation between birth control? I don't know if I should say
And
pills
fibroids.
or because there's so many different things. Yeah, birth control and fibroids in general.
So they'll make it smaller. If you're on the hormonal one, so if you're using like the ones that are like if you're using condoms or like the copper IUD, those will likely not affect. The copper IUD might make you bleed, but like the other non-hormonal ones will probably not affect the fibroid. But if you're on a hormonal IUD, hormonal implant, oral contraceptives, because the medical way that we reduce them or prevent their symptoms usually will be with these birth control measures. So if you have these birth control, chances are that they'll be reduced or they'll not cause you to bleed or have some of the other symptoms as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And inflammation. So I follow this page on Instagram that talks about gut health and so on. But I think she also kind of talks about periods and things. And she talks about inflammations. And I was wondering if that's also got a correlation with fibroids. If maybe they say me, I'm lactose intolerant, so I know not to be, ingesting milk and cheese and all of that because directly it's going to have an effect on me. Do you think that if I'm the type that likes to eat a lot of dairy stuff, in like I could be, feeding my fibroids because it causes an inflammation in my body and therefore throws my everything off balance?
I would have to research on that, but my first the top of my head answer would be generally diet is important, right? So I wouldn't say specifically dairy or whatever, but a healthy diet. And for most of us adults, we are lactose intolerant because our body is not processing this lactose, right?
Yeah.
But like a healthy amount is not a bad thing. So I won't say that not eating like dairy free or gluten free or whatever is going to make you less susceptible or it's going to make it easier. But generally, your general health, the healthier you are, the it's like a cascading effect. If you're eating unhealthy food, it's going to be like a whole cascade. The rest of your body is going to find it hard to recover multiple ways, not just like your uterus or whatever. So it's like a whole cascade of whatever, you know. So I won't say specifically just lactose, and I don't know about this inflammation, because inflammation usually is like the body's way of saying, oh, there's something wrong, and so let me fix it, right? But like, I wouldn't say that there's one specific thing that is going to cascade and like make your fibroids smaller, but a general healthy diet, healthy lifestyle is really important.
Okay, thanks.
I feel like, Adina, was your question coming from a place where, I mean, I think there's a lot of, I don't know if it's misperception or actual truth, that if you have tumors, that certain things feed those tumors. And I guess fibroids are perhaps like linked to growth and things like that. So I think people might perceive that, you know, certain, you know, foods or chemicals within those foods would feed it, making it get bigger. And at least, I don't know, I think you're saying diet is important, but there's no direct correlation there. Yeah. Okay. Okay, right. I forgot for a second that I was actually the moderator. I muted myself. I'm just like sitting here chatting with everybody. Right. Okay. So, what to say? Adina, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add? Do you feel like you left anything out? I feel like you've been so transparent, so authentic. You told the story with such, it was a good story time because we all just like listening, such details, such depth. You didn't really skip on any details, which I love that about you. So thank you. And if there's anything we want to add or not, like any last words.
I mean, I just want to say that if you're suspecting, well, listen to your body. If you're suspecting anything, you know, like we're all saying, make sure you do all the research there is. You go to the doctors, talk to people, you know, open up. And I'm glad you guys have this beautiful platform. I'll be looking forward to your platform, your Poka, the chats thing. I know you've got your WhatsApp. I'll be looking forward to seeing it on the app. That way we can have more anonymous conversations about all these kinds of things, and yeah, just talk about so many other things. But yeah, it's a great initiative that you guys have put together. I'm proud of all of you, and I wish you guys the very, very best. But for everyone else that's tuned in, make sure you're asking all the right questions. It's very important. Yeah.
Adele, you're muted. If you're
Yeah,
speaking.
no, sorry. Yeah. I was just saying, with that said, I think we'll wrap up this session. We have taken up quite a bit of Adina's time today, and you know, she has money to make, songs to sing. I know you're a little raspy right now, but you have a new song out. Can you sing a bar
Yes.
from that new song? Yes. What is it? Tell us a little bit of it.
Oh.
I'm recovering from a flu. I hope my voice will not fail me.
It will not.
Let me see. Asoriano pana obi time okwa. Ayo so bi doa. Obi time okwa. Na obi time wo. When yane na obi time okwa. Obi time o. Nane. Obi time okwa. Missy. Obi time wo. There you go.
Amazing. Goosebumps. Thank you so much. Lovely voice. Yeah. All right, guys. So we're gonna bring our session. Oh, let me see. I have 2 comments in the chat. Let me quickly see if I can read that. A cappella time. A big heart. Okay. All right. So that brings an end to Poka X Adina for Fibroid Awareness Month. And after today, Fibroid Awareness Month concludes. And this was the crowning event with our queen, Adina. Like she
There's
said,
something I want to say real quick. Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so as I said, everything was put together. The video on my fibroid journey and everything, the surgery, is available on my YouTube, so everyone can go and check it out. That's about it, basically.
Okay. Yeah, we'll share that. Yeah. So Adina, what's your YouTube handle?
It's Adina Thembi.
Adina Thembi on YouTube. Yeah. So you can follow the journey that she actually recorded herself and shared on her YouTube, I believe. So please do that. If you haven't already, scan the barcode, download the Poka app. We're, building this specifically for African women. Of course, anybody can use it, but the information available there will be talking to the Black woman, to the African woman. And follow us on our socials at Poka app everywhere. And yeah, I think that's it. Any other words from, are we doing the demo? I don't think we have time for the demo, guys. So we're good there. We're good. What do you
Sorry,
think,
no
Hannah?
time for the demo, but everybody download the Poka Health app and I guess join the community, ask us any questions. Yeah, we're literally very available to talk to you at any time. So just check any questions you might have in the comments on our WhatsApp group. And when we move into the app, like Adina said, continue to chat with us and yeah, we'll help you understand the app better if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Adina. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Adina.
Bye.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It was nice meeting all of you.
Nice
Nice to
meeting
meet
you
you.
too.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, YouTube. I know there's a few of you there. Thank you so much for joining us